I used to get into a lot of sticky situations during our voyage on the Starship Enterprise, but I was always able to get out of them like this. See what I just did there? And I didn't even have Scotty to beat me up. But can we somehow transport ourselves from one location to another in an instant? Things like that are science fiction, right? Wrong. 1960, suburban New Jersey. 6-year-old Andrew Basiago was about to have the most incredible day of his life.
My dad called out to my mother and said, "Hon, I'm taking Andy to the hardware store." Instead, he drove me up to the old aeronautical company facility in Woodridge, New Jersey, a large defense technical experimental area that dated back to World War II.
As they enter the facility, Andrew wonders why his father Frank would bring him to a place like this.
I didn't know what was happening.
Andrew's dad leads him to a secret room. Inside is something unlike anything he's ever seen before.
It was so strange. It essentially consisted of 2 elliptical-shaped booms that were about 8 feet tall and about 10 feet across.
It's a machine that's beyond Andrew's comprehension. Whatever it is, his father is clearly in charge. But why? And what is it for?
Had the technician turn the device on.
As Andrew watches, the booms begin to spin, generating a strange cascade of energy.
That looked almost like water falling in a public fountain. It was a very beautiful, sort of shimmering field of energy.
As the energy field from the machine grows, Andrew's dad does something incredible. He tells his son to take his hand, then the unimaginable happens.
We counted down, 1, 2, 3. On the count of 3, we jumped through the field of energy. We seemed to be moving, and I could ultimately see a point of light in the distance. And that light reached us very quickly and accelerated. And when the light hit us, we were elsewhere in the country. Now, my father didn't tell me where we were going. In fact, we were jumping 2,005 miles through this vortal tunnel in the fabric of time-space to the state capitol grounds in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
It's an astonishing claim. Did 2 humans actually transport from New Jersey to New Mexico in the blink of an eye? What happened to Andrew and his father? Is his story just the wild fantasy of a 6-year-old? Basiago believes there is only one answer.
I think I must have teleported. Imagine traveling through the Lincoln Tunnel in New York City at 10,000 miles per hour without any automobile around. That's sort of what it was like. We were physically moving through a vortal tunnel in the fabric of time-space.
Had Andrew's father, Frank, invented the world's first teleportation machine? And if so, why? Frank Basiago was no ordinary dad. During the Cold War, the U.S. and Soviets raced for military superiority. Frank was head of a top-secret American research team who were conducting experiments into teleportation. But why did Frank use his son as a guinea pig?
I think my dad's immediate goal in inviting me to teleport was to show that if teleportation was safe for his son, it was safe for anybody's child. And I was in it as a child, just as, for example, a child may have been aboard, one of Columbus's boats, or may have been an office boy to the Wright brothers, or an assistant to Thomas Alva Edison.
After the success of his experiment, Frank Basiago decides teleportation is too important to keep secret. He wants to tell the world, but the U.S. military disagrees.
And so the unfortunate history of U.S. teleportation is that it has remained essentially a military secret ever since. Today, I am leading the Truth Campaign. I'm urging the United States government to declassify teleportation to allow people to teleport between major world cities. The way I see it, I have a duty simply to stand in my truth and tell it.
Did Frank Basiago invent a machine that could instantly transport us across the world, or even to other dimensions? Is teleportation possible?
wouldn't like to be the first one to be teleported. I would worry to end up maybe like a Picasso painting.
A boy enters a teleportation machine and is suddenly transported thousands of miles in seconds. Is human teleportation possible? Raymond Laflamme is a physicist. He thinks the idea we can teleport our bodies is simply fantasy.
It seems that the laws of physics are more constrained than the imagination of human beings. The first idea that we have when we think about teleportation is the Star Trek idea. Beam me up, Scotty. The idea of taking a person, suddenly disintegrate in some form and reappearing up in a space station. Now, this is something that happens in science fiction.
But incredibly, although Laflamme dismisses the idea that people can teleport, he does believe it can happen in other ways, because he was one of the first scientists to do it.
We're not teleporting matter from one location to the other. We're really teleporting information.
Wait a second. Teleporting information? How is that any different than sending an email?
When we send an email, or even when we talk on our cell phone, the information goes from the sender to the intervening space to a receiver.
Remarkably, Laflamme has been able to teleport information without it traveling through any device at all.
What has been teleported is one quantum bit of information, or qubit, is sent from one location to the other. It has happened in nuclear magnetic resonance, where the information has gone from one atom of a molecule to another one. But it has also appeared in optics, where people have put information or quantum information in a particle of light called photons, send it to another location a few kilometers away, and then made it reappear over there. We've been able to teleport a few kilometers, taking one particle of information and make it reappear a few kilometers down the line. We've been able to do this.
It works like this. In the world of quantum physics, even the tiniest particles are somehow connected, even across huge distances. In quantum teleportation, such entangled particles can literally be in two places at once.
Absolutely amazing that we can teleport. In quantum teleportation, it seems to disappear here and reappear there. It looks like a piece of magic, a piece which we're not used to. Once we have technology based on quantum entanglement, on quantum teleportation, maybe we'll think it's very familiar and banal. But today, for us, it looks something very unusual.
This technology could soon be used to instantly communicate with spaceships, no matter how far away. Or send military communications that are impossible to intercept.
We're just at the beginning of understanding what is quantum teleportation, how it works.
We may be able to teleport information, but does Andrew Basiago's story mean we can do it to ourselves? Laflamme thinks not.
You must have a secret that I do not have to be able to do this. But I wouldn't like to be the first one to be teleported. I would worry to end up maybe like a Picasso painting.
If human teleportation isn't possible, what happened to Andrew Basiago? Was his incredible journey just a figment of childhood imagination? Bruce Goldberg is a hypnotherapist. He thinks stories like Andrew's are very real.
We have ancient literature going back thousands of years of people who've teleported. There are a lot of religious cases, but there are also secular cases, too. I think teleportation exists.
But how? Goldberg believes he's discovered the secret.
I first discovered teleportation while working with patients. People were described disappearing from one location. One gentleman went from New York City to Paris in an instant. I mean, he disappeared. His wife was sitting in the same room and telling me, yeah, my husband disappeared. I don't know where he went, and I was right there.
At first, Goldberg doubted his patients.
So then I started doing research about the teleportation cases. These are psychologically stable people. I know them, I know their families, and they weren't on drugs, okay?
But as he continued his research, Goldberg's patients began to describe their teleportation experiences in remarkable detail. And they all had one thing in common.
You see first just a little bit like tunnel vision, and then all of a sudden you appear whole. The people look exactly like we do. Some of the people that I meet are recognizable. I know who they are.
Incredibly, the people they encountered were replicas of themselves. The hauntingly similar experiences led Goldberg to a stunning insight.
When you teleport, you leave this universe and move into a parallel universe. Parallel universes are sister universes that exist alongside ours. Your DNA is exactly the same in your parallel life as it is here.
Are Goldberg's patients somehow being sucked into parallel dimensions and then meeting their own doppelgangers?
Now this is getting really crazy. Is there more than one Bill? Is there more than one you? Sounds nuts, right? Incredibly, physicists believe that these identical copies of ourselves might exist. Now, I don't really understand how this is possible, but if the eggheads say the math works, who am I to argue?
Do identical copies of each and every one of us exist in parallel worlds? Could we even enter those alternate realities? Bruce Goldberg believes the possibilities are staggering.
Let's say you have certain aspects of your life right now that you cannot change. Maybe you have an incurable disease. Maybe you have a criminal record. Maybe you've lost an arm. Well, in a parallel universe, that didn't exist. So instead of committing suicide or just going through life being depressed, you can actually switch universes and, in fact, have a much better life.
Do we all exist in other dimensions? Do we possess machines that can teleport us from one world to another? Could Scotty really beam us up after all? Weird,